This is an in-depth video on how I scaled an ad account from $0 in ad spend all the way up to $350,000 in ad spend profitably in just 60 days from scratch. I'll be showing you exactly how many ads I tested, how many videos I tested, how many copies I tested, how many headlines, how many interests, how many landing pages, and how many hours it took me to get to $350,000 in ad spend in 60 days. And the last one, how long it took me, is probably going to surprise you a bit. After watching this video, you're going to know the exact fundamentals that apply to scaling any business past $100,000 or multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend and revenue per month. Alright, so this business was an online casino, and online casinos are actually very much like e-commerce businesses. The dynamics are almost identical. Instead of driving a purchase, you drive a first-time deposit, and just like e-commerce companies can heavily rely on the lifetime value to increase, so can an online casino. My 60-day target was to hit a cost per first-time deposit of $8, but we also had a tolerable cost per first-time deposit of $14, meaning that we were likely still profitable at $14 per first-time deposit. Now, the target monthly ad spend was $100,000 to $150,000 per month in 60 days, and a target daily first-time deposits of 1,000. Now, the ad account was set up in Brazilian real, and $1 equals 5 real. Our very first step to impacting the results of the ad account is to write and create winning ads. You need winning ads in order to scale an ad account. Now, the fastest way to creating winning ads is by creating a lot of ads and testing them rapidly. A winning ad is an ad that is extremely profitable for you. If, for example, my target cost per deposit is 50 real, $10, and I find out that I have an ad that's generating deposits at 40 real, that's a winner, because the cost per deposit is only 80% of my ideal cost per deposit. Now, I'm looking for this safety margin because skill and performance have an inverse relationship. When I increase my budget, the cost per result will also increase in 90% of the cases. Conversely, when I decrease the budget, my cost per result will likely decrease, which is beneficial. So that's why it's an art to scale an ad account while keeping the cost per result stable. As you scale your budget, you are forcing Facebook to show your ad to more and more people, and Facebook always opts to show your ad to the easiest to convert audiences first. But as you scale, you deplete Facebook's pool of easy to convert prospects at any given time, and Facebook is forced to show your ad to less and less relevant audiences. This in turn increases your cost per result, and that is why you cannot scale an ad account unless you have winning ads and audiences with this safety margin. You need these to do extremely well so that they are potent enough to also convert less relevant audiences as you continue to scale. Now, in this 60-day period, I created 330 ads, which is roughly 5 per day, including the weekend days, and I tested over 500 videos. The reason that my advertising count is lower than my video count is because I tested my videos in dynamic creatives as well, which enables you to just pile 10 different video assets into one ad, and that's why you can get less ads and more videos done. Now, in the very first month, we relied heavily on the images and the copies that I had written myself. These took us from $0 all the way up to $48,000 in 30 days. But if we wanted to scale past $100,000 in monthly ad spend, we needed more winning ads. In the second month, the content creators started sending us their videos. Funny enough, one of the first scripts I sent to the creators did extremely well, as it was based on the winning ad that we already had in the first month. We were able to scale that very, very quickly. The client delivered most of the 507 videos during the second half of the 60-day period, enabling us to scale far quicker. Now, the success rate was only 5% on these videos. Our creators stopped using scripts along the 60-day period, and performance or success rate of their creators creatives started dropping. This is why at the end of the 60-day period, I started writing one script per day, and we saw that success rate of the creatives rise again. If we had spotted this earlier, the success rate would have been a lot higher, and potentially we would have scaled the ad account even to bigger numbers in a shorter time period. But you live and you learn. I estimate that from the 507 videos, we had 10 to 20 winning ads, enough for us to spend well over $300,000 in the following 30 days, and even as much as 15,000 US dollars in one record day. Now, my campaign structures are quite simple when it comes to testing ads. I like to use ad set budgets, targeting the same audience, and then one ad in each ad set so that each ad gets an equal amount of spend. And I have an A/B test where I can compare the results and easily identify which of the ads are actually winners and which of the ads are losers. My ad testing, creative testing, copy testing, all that testing of the ad is done in my phase 2 campaign. My phase 1 campaign is audience testing. My phase 2 campaign is the creative testing, and phase 3 campaigns are my scaling campaigns. And I'll dive into each and every one of these in more depth and give you all the strategies I use to really scale my phase 3 campaigns, but also what I do in my phase 1 campaigns. Now, not only is it vital in an ad account to have winning ads in order to scale your campaigns, but it is also extremely important that you have winning audiences. The more winning ads you have and the more winning audiences you have, the easier it is to scale your ad account. I have tested 91 audiences during that 60-day period, and funny enough, people always tell me that audience testing doesn't work, but just look at the phase 1 campaign at the very top here. Phase 1 is my audience testing campaign, as I just mentioned, and it's actually the campaign with the most deposits in this 60-day period. It generated roughly 7,000 deposits, which is 20% of all deposits at an average cost per first-time deposit of $35 or $7, where the average in the account was 52, which is roughly $10. Now, just realize how valuable that is to the ad account as a whole. 20% of all the deposits at an insanely cheap price relative to the performance of the ad account. That's the power of doing just a little more than your competitors are doing. Where everyone's taking the lazy route, we're out here testing the audiences. Why do we do it? Well, because it works. And most media buyers, agencies, and business owners have adopted the false belief that audience testing doesn't work. This comes down to their laziness, lack of critical thinking, or lack of knowledge, as anyone who's ever really put this to the test knows that there are always more big and profitable audiences out there than just your open or broad targeting ad sets. If you don't test your audiences, I hope this video will get you to do so, as you can do it very easily and swiftly, and it can be a very profitable and sizable campaign for you that brings your total amount of conversions up and the cost per conversions down, which is ultimately your job as a media buyer at scale. Now, if I filter the results on my audience testing campaigns, my audience testing campaigns spent 87,000 US dollars out of the 350,000 US dollars in that 60-day period, with an average cost per FTD of 45 or roughly $9. And that's 25% of the total ad spend during that period. If that doesn't prove that audience testing works, I don't know what does. By simply implementing this, you can scale an ad account by 20 to 30%. By having more profitable audiences than just your open targeting or broad audience targeting, you can scale your ad account not only vertically through the budgets and CBOs that you use, but also horizontally by the number of profitable audiences that you have. Now, if you like what I'm sharing here and you like this case study, then hit the subscribe button and I'll share more in-depth case studies just like this one. So far, I've mentioned that my phase 1 campaigns are my audience testing campaigns, my phase 2 campaigns are my creative testing campaigns, and my phase 3 campaigns are my scaling campaigns. A side note, when you have a new winning ad in your phase 2 campaign, it's smart to run that in a separate phase 1 campaign where you test different audiences for that specific ad, and in that way you can actually drive more budget through that one ad, and you can scale your ad account vertically and horizontally. Another way that you can scale your profitable ads or your phase 1 campaign is by duplicating your profitable audiences in that phase 1 campaign that you have set to an ad set budget, if you do it the same way as I do, and then simply duplicate them and increase the budget on the duplicate. You can see here that I started at 500 real per ad set, which is roughly $100 per day. Some were doing extremely well. Anything below 40, which is $8, was really scalable. I took the best ad sets in that phase 1 campaign, duplicated them, and set the budget to 5,000 real, which is a budget of $1,000 per day. And you can see that the average cost per deposit or first time deposit went from 35 real up to 45 and 55 real. This was still fine by me, as it's well within the tolerance limit and still very lucrative for the business, but it is something to notice. I duplicate the ad set because what I found from my own experience is that if I increase the budget of the ad set incrementally, then the performance goes up and down, and it's very sporadic and it doesn't always work, versus when I simply duplicate the ad set that is doing well, then I still have the original one doing well because that one is basically untouched. I just duplicated it, but nothing happens to it. And then the new one starts running on that higher budget, and they're just two completely different things. And if the new higher budget takes, then it's a win. But if it doesn't, then nothing is lost because the original one is still performing well for me. Whereas if I scale the budget in that one ad set, then I might lose the entire ad set because if the budget increase doesn't take, then it's really hard to get the performance back down to where it was by decreasing the budget again. So I live by the rule, don't touch your winners, and that has worked really well for me. I've tested other ways, but that's just simply what works really, really well for me. Now, looking at our scaling campaigns, the phase 3s, those are usually CBO campaigns, but can also consist of ad set budgets. The most important thing to remember when you start scaling with CBOs and even with ABOs is that you have that safety margin that we spoke about earlier. Your winners need to do substantially better than you can tolerate at statistically significant numbers so that you can lose that margin as you scale them and still make a good profit. As a rule of thumb, you want at least 3 winning ads before you start really scaling the ad account. You can start with just 1 or 2 winners, but you'll run into ad fatigue way quicker. And CBOs, in my experience, just tend to do a lot better with 3 to 5 ads versus just 1 or 2 ads. Of course, you'll always have exceptions to rules like this, but this is what I've experienced from spending a couple dozen millions on ads. Now, my go-to account structure for a phase 3 CBO is a CBO with 3 ad sets and 3 winning ads per ad set. In essence, you have 3 ads per ad set, so 9 ads in total. Audience 1 gets ad A, B, C, and audience 2 gets ad A, B, C, and then audience 3 gets ad A, B, and C as well, just to make it super clear. And now it's super important that these audiences are large because you're looking to scale. I look for audiences that are at least 2 million people in size, but if I'm targeting a small country or region or the population is really small there, then I let that rule slide. If you're targeting interests and lookalikes, I have found that the bigger the audience, the more consistent the performance and the longer you can run it without ad fatigue. This again is very easy to explain because if the ad works on a very large audience, this means your ad appeals to a large number of people. If it only works on a small group of people, then the ad is not appealing enough to the mass market and you can't scale it. When first starting out, I like to take note of the different CBO structures that I've tested and the starting budget of those campaigns, as these can generate different results. What I noticed for this specific ad account was that a CBO with 2 ad sets and 3 ads performed a lot better than 3 ad sets and 3 ads. And this is really why I take note of these things, because they can deviate, like an ad account can deviate from the standard. And what I also noticed was that an ad set or a CBO with an ad set that had an interest like casino, which was really large, alongside a broad targeting ad set, performed really, really well. In the beginning, I was only able to start these campaigns at a budget of 3,500 real per day. At 7,000 real per day, these campaigns would start to tank. Now, this is roughly a budget of $700 per day or $1,400 per day. Now, the reason that these performed at 3,500 but not at 7,000 is not only caused by the starting budget. It actually has more to do with how well your ads are performing. If you have a larger safety margin, meaning your ads are just phenomenal, those will work on higher starting budgets as well. But regardless of this, I take note of the campaign structures and budgets so that I know where that budget threshold is at with my current deck of winning ads. That way I can easily create phase 3 campaigns with a high success rate as soon as I find new winning ads or audiences. If that new phase 3 CBO at 3,500 real or $700 per day with 2 ad sets then doesn't work, I know that it's likely not the CBO structure, because this structure has worked repeatedly and I've spotted this trend early on by taking note. It prevents me from testing CBOs at 7,000 per day with 3 ad sets, ultimately setting myself up for wasted ad spend when it's not necessary. And it also helps me to determine what the problem is. If I use a consistent campaign structure that's always working for me, then I also know that if that campaign doesn't work with a new ad, then it might be the ad and not the campaign structure, which is also really valuable information. In a few minutes though, I'll show you how I got campaigns working and running at 7,000 and even 10,000 real per day, which is $2,000 per day. There's also a really cool method called surfing budgets, which means that if a campaign is having a really good day, you simply scale the budget by doubling it on that specific day. Now, I scaled a few ad accounts really hard by doing this, but it didn't work on the occasions that I tried it in this account. You can even do this successfully a couple times per day. So if you have a CBO running and doing extremely well in the morning at $500 per day, then you can scale it to $1,000 per day on that day, see if it hits, and then if it still does amazing, you can scale it again to $2,000 on that same day. That's how you squeeze everything out of a good day, but don't forget to adjust your budget at the end of the day or set a rule for it, because usually during midnight the campaign starts to spend a lot where it actually shouldn't really, and you wake up and you've just spent like $1,000 or $2,000 of your customer's budget or client's budget, and you've got really poor results. So that is a really cool way to scale the ad account. That's one of the ways that I scaled the ad account in the Netherlands for that real estate agent, where we did $7,000 in ad spend. Most of it came from just doubling budgets on a day-to-day basis and then decreasing it during midnight. Another way to apply this is the inverse. If you have a really bad day, you can adjust the budgets downwards to save money. Now, I do consider this a tactic that's more suitable for experienced media buyers. As with budget changes like this, the ad set potentially loses its learnings, and you're also increasing and decreasing budgets substantially. However, when done right, you can scale an ad account to insane heights using this technique. But be careful though, as you need large safety margins to do so. And frankly, for this to work, you need to spend quite a lot anyway, as it works best on CBOs with at least a budget of $500 or $1,000, depending on the product that you're selling or the service. Now, back to where I was. With my high success rate campaign structure and starting budget, I started launching more campaigns with 2 ad sets and 3 ads at a starting budget of 3,500 real per day. And that's how I was able to spend a large portion of the $350,000 US, because $137,000 or roughly 40% was spent on phase 3 campaigns. As you can see from the image, most phase 3 campaigns ran at 3,500 real per day, and I had quite a few running side by side. This is because as I find new winning ads and audiences, I start running new phase 3 campaigns with the fresh ads or audiences, or I run hybrid campaigns where I use my original best performing assets with my new winning assets. Now, for phase 3 campaigns, there aren't really any rules in my eyes. You can get very creative with ad sets, CBOs, structures, budgets. You can even test cost caps, bid caps, all that stuff. It's really all about using the assets that you have and finding more ways to pump budget through. Like, you have winners now, you have great margin on some of your top performing ads. So all there's left to do really is to find ways to get more and more budget through. And that in essence is your job as a media buyer, and how you do it doesn't really matter. But I found that the duplicating the ad sets at higher budgets and CBOs are really effective at doing this, but you can also get great results with cost caps and bid caps and all that stuff. Now, as you find better and better assets, you can increase the starting budgets of your campaigns. For example, all the way at the bottom here, you can find a campaign that I launched at 10,000 real per day, which is $2,000 per day, doing just fine at that budget. And it actually took off on the first day at 10,000 real per day and a cost per FTD of 34, which relative to the ad account was really, really low. And it didn't spend much in the 60-day period because I had to turn off the campaign as the client had to top up the ad account budget, and we needed to stretch the current credit at the moment of launching that $10,000 real campaign over a longer period. So in other words, I had to scale down the daily spend. Most likely the spend during this period would have been even higher, considerably higher, but I'm very pleased with the results, as was the client. Now you can see that from the $350,000 in spend, $91,000 went to ad testing, which is roughly 26%. I estimate that north of 75% of my time is spent finding new winners, as winners drive 80% or more of the ad account's performance. I find winners by writing new copy, writing new scripts, doing creative briefs, creating images, doing customer research, and analyzing my data to form new hypotheses on what's going to work or do even better. Now, 75% of my time is spent creatively with a pinch of data and customer research, and then the other 25% is mostly spent on client communication and the ad account management. What's really important to understand about scaling an ad account to $350,000 in 60 days from scratch profitably is that it requires a real commitment. I love doing this, and when I'm scaling this hard, I can't help myself but check the ad account at 6 a.m. in the morning when I get up, and just before I go to bed at like 10 p.m. This is because I just have to know, I'm super curious whether a new ad that I created and expected to do well is actually doing well and is actually a new winner that I'd be excited about. I love working out, and after that going to a coffee shop for like 3 to 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday to analyze last week's results and actions that we took, and to make projections for the upcoming week. I think about questions like what are the required actions I need to take to get to $15,000 per day in ad spend in the next 5 days, or what would I need to do in order to spend $500,000 in US dollars next month. The only way that I know to scale an ad account to $350,000 in 60 days is with a commitment to the projections to the client and overall just your reputation and the results that you're getting. You have to check your numbers and the projections each and every day to see whether you're on track, behind, and then also take real corrective actions immediately. As a media buyer, you need to be on top of it 24/7 at these spends. You can't have a bad day in performance, let alone a bad week. You're spending thousands of dollars each and every single day that need to get a positive return. Besides that, it takes an individual with extraordinary drive to do this. I think that's why most agencies fail to deliver. It's because there's no incentive for the individual that actually was responsible for the ad account to do well. And because of flat retainers, they can actually earn more for themselves and for the agency the less time they spend per client. This in combination with the amount of clients that they have, just the regular working hours like the 9 to 5s, and no commitment that drives them to push hard during the weekends or late hours or the early mornings, makes it so that they're often getting you results that are really disappointing, right? And this is why their churn rates are so high. Now, I've worked with this client for over 3 years now. The e-commerce business that I told you about, where we spent $140,000 in ad spend to generate over $500,000 in revenue in 1 month. That is actually his e-commerce business. Yeah, it's been a great relationship, and I think the only way that relationship can really last that long is if you see each other more as partners versus just one of many clients that you kind of have to service, right? You guys are probably really curious about, or I would be really curious about, how long it actually took to get these results, and I'm going to break that down right now. In total, I spent 84 hours on this account in 60 days, which is not that many hours. But I do work with extreme focus. So I cut off all distractions and set a timer of 90 minutes next to my laptop in which I do deep focused work on just one task at a time. With that laser focus, I was able to scale the ad account past $350,000 in 60 days profitably in just 1.5 hours per day. This got him from $0 to $48,000 in ad spend in the very first month, heavily relying on the images that I personally made and the ad copies that I personally created. And then the second month, we really started collaborating with the content creators, and they started using our scripts. And that was when we got to $300,000 in spend in the second month. And then, well, eventually at the end, we did $350,000 in 60 days. So overall, really, really great results at 1.5 hours per day. And I can tell you, relative to what agencies ask, he only paid like a portion of that. So it's been really, really profitable for him. Now, if you're currently paying a large sum for some lame-ass agency, maybe even with some sort of ad spend structure that you're not comfortable with, they're eating away at your margins. You are making a lot of revenue, but their costs are so high that you're even doubting whether you're getting cash flow from them or if they're just reporting good numbers but actually taking away your cash flow. Then reach out to me and we can see whether we can scale your ad account and we can get you better cash flow, better returns, more profits. Or if you simply want to work with an individual that loves their craft and goes above and beyond to deliver the best results for you, really just working as a partner to your business versus just someone delivering service and then signing off at 5 p.m. Then there's really only one thing to do. Reach out to me and hit that subscribe button to see more videos like this. If you're a media buyer, then I'm really excited for you because I love the craft, and I hope you do too. And if you want to learn more about media buying and copywriting and landing page tests and all that stuff, then also make sure to subscribe, as this is also really, really cool for media buyers, and I'd love to get in touch with more media buyers like yourself. So thank you for watching. Regardless of who you are and what you do, I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. All right, cheers.